Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Video and sound checks first. Evidently 12 people are watching, but yes, no, maybe. Do I sound clear enough? How's the mic? Okay. Welcome to the Oxrageous Podcast. It's been a couple of years since I did one of these. And honestly, during the Mullen era, I had no desire to do anything like this. It was hard enough to watch the games, but here we are yet again for the let's see, since I started Gator Chatter, we hired Muschamp. I don't remember, a bunch of stiffs, and here we are. And as you know, I always set the tone on my board. I'm a dictator, benevolent but a dictator, and I know the kind of people I'm dealing with, and every time there's a coaching search, the expectations are at a certain level, and the way I felt was that we really weren't in any position anymore to necessarily be at the level we had been before. So, in reading a lot about the candidates, of course, Billy Napier's name came up pretty quick. So instead of just jumping to conclusions, I started reading about him, and I started liking what I was reading in terms of the fact that he was a program builder. Whether or not he was going to be a winner at UF, I didn't know. But I did know that we were in terrible shape. We are in worse shape now than we were after Muschamp, after Butters. I didn't think it'd get worse, but here we are. And we have to start over. This isn't a matter of winning the national title next year. We just need a little tweak here and there. And it wasn't completely about coaching either. It's all about the administration. And we've been actually, in the discussions we've had the last week, I think a lot of us have come to a conclusion, a more final conclusion, that maybe the last three stiffs weren't all to blame. That the administration did their part in just simply not giving them everything they needed to be successful. And we've seen it more and more things come up, like this stupid cafeteria thing. To me, it's obvious at this point. It's obvious that the administration, Scott Strickland and the rest of the boys, have seen the light, at least to some degree. I know that they felt recruiting was important. That was one thing I'd heard about earlier after they fired Grantham and these other guys before Mullen went bye-bye, was that recruiting was the number one thing, and it should be. Really, recruiting should be your number one thing. It's the lifeblood. Even if you got a lousy coach, if you got a lot of great players, you're gonna win 9 or 10 games at UF. But in terms of Billy Napier, he's the kind of guy that runs a tight ship, and there's a lot of moving parts, and he wants it the way he wants it. And by all accounts, he wasn't going to take the job unless he was getting what he wanted. And so far, I think the signs there have been good that that's been the case. So I'm excited. I'm not necessarily excited about, Napier's offenses coming in and us winning, 80-0 right off the bat. I'm excited about the rebuild. I think this is going to be different. I definitely think our recruiting is going to be night and day. Both Butters and Mullen were lazy on the trail, lazy everywhere, but lazy especially on the trail, which is inexcusable. It's obvious they didn't like it. And I can tell you something, if you're a head coach and you don't like recruiting, a lot of them don't, you better surround yourself with assistants that do, so they can do that work for you. But neither one of those guys bothered to do that. Mullen didn't want to recruit, and his assistants didn't want to recruit. So here we are, with these kind of classes that simply aren't going to compete. So I think Napier believes heavily in relationships with high school coaches, which is important. If you get the major high schools on your side, they will push players your way. If they don't like you, and I know they didn't like Mullen or Butters, they will push players away from you, encourage them to go other places. So I think Napier and his boys are going to be building relationships with high schools all over the state. He's already got a bunch of relationships with high schools in Louisiana, so I think we may end up be able to get some players from that state that we may not have normally have gotten to get. So I'm intrigued with this presser coming up. I want to hear what he has to say right off the bat. Back to me being a dictator. When the name was first floated, the reaction was what I would expect. It was immediate hate. So it turned in personal in a hurry. Somebody threw a sling blade out, and then that everybody ran with that. He's a hick. He's an idiot. Off they went. Now this bothered me more than I thought it would, because I thought I'm protective of this fan base, and I thought we looked idiotic. I thought we looked more idiotic than usual. And I went back and forth with several people. I censored a few people. That's what I do. Kicked a few, banned a few, because I was trying to change the tone. And eventually people came around. But I remember Threat Matrix came into the chat box. We were having a serious conversation about the rebuild. And what Threat said was, and he was ragging on me. He wasn't being serious. He was being a jerk. But what he said was true. He said Napier is not the hero we want. He's the hero we need, which is some stupid Marvel slogan or something. But I thought, he's right. It's right of the money. The slogan's perfect. Napier is not the hero we want. He's the hero we need. So I'm very intrigued to see this build. And I think we're going to be really happy with the assistant coach he brings on and everything. All this starts on Sunday. And it's the first time I can remember wanting to be right there at the beginning of a presser, seeing it. Usually when Mullen's hired, I'll watch his presser later. You can't even get through it. This one I'm really looking forward to. So I just felt compelled to have one of these podcasts for the first time in years, because I'm excited. I'm excited about the direction of the program for the first time in a long time. So I'm looking at the chat box now. And we got 16 people watching live. And does anyone have any specific questions? I'm looking at the chat box. And if someone wants to be an idiot, I will kick them. Does anyone have any serious questions? Looks like everyone's having a great time in there. I don't know if anyone's actually watching. They're just... Okay, looks like no questions. So, okay, here's a question. Who is he recruited of note? Are we getting the guys back we lost when Mullen was fired? I don't know. There's your answer. There's a brilliant answer. What we do know is that Napier is going to try. Unlike Mullen, Napier is going to get on the phone. He's going to attack social media. You can tell he's big on that, which is smart. That's what all the kids do right now. Follow him on Twitter or whatever. He probably hates it like the rest of us, but he does what he's got to do. So, I mean, the first thing he did, he already got AR-15 on board, which I knew he would, which didn't take long. I know we've got the early signing day periods in a couple of weeks. It's going to be interesting to see if we can add a couple of interesting players. There's been so much turmoil throughout the country with a dozen job openings. There's got to be a lot of good kids that I would think would be ripe for the taking, because their coach is leaving or is left or whatever. So I can't wait to find out. We've got 2 weeks till early signing period, and I have a feeling we're going to see at least one happy surprise. So, okay, next question. Carib Gator, in your opinion, based on the bare cupboard that Mullet left us, how long do you think it'll take for Sling Blade to get us competitive? Well, keep in mind, this year was an awful year. We were terrible in all three phases. We had a coach that quit, that nobody wanted. Nothing went right. And the Gators still won 6 games. So, to me, 9 wins next year is a gimme. I think we're going to have a team that's, first of all, we're going to have AR-15. We're going to have a quarterback. There's a big chunk of your problem solved right there. Now, he's got to stay healthy. That's my big concern. I mean, the guy rolls out of bed and he's hurt. But I think we're going to be competitive next year. We're not going to win the SEC, of course, next year. But I really think the following year, it depends on this. A lot of it. We'll see what he can do with this recruiting class. But I think we're going to be competitive right away. Now, you say competitive for SEC championships? Probably a couple years away, unless we catch lightning in a bottle with a player. But the fact is, we're so far behind on recruiting classes from the big guns. Georgia is so far ahead of us. They've already got 5-stars lined up behind their 5-stars now. So unless Napier is a superior in-game coach, we're probably going to lose to Georgia for a while. But I could be wrong about that. I thought we'd lose to Georgia last year and we beat them. So I don't think it'll take long. Is that it? Yeah, we got 20 people in the chat box. Look at that. All to see me. Definitely. Not a soul would be in here if it wasn't for me. Remember, there are no dumb questions, just dumb posters asking me. That's true. That is really cool. Let's see. Do you think we can get quality assistance? Yeah. So far, it looks like he's almost, that's all he's looking at is quality assistance. A few are iffy, and I think that whoever he gets at DC, I think will be really happy with. And I keep saying that I think defensive coordinator is the first place he needs to worry about. I mean, let's face it, he's the offensive guy. He's the offensive mind. Whether he's good or not, that's what he is. So we need to rebuild the defense. We need to get a top quality coordinator in there. There's rumors that he was trying to get Brett Van Abels from a Clemson who makes $2.5 million a year. I don't know why he would make that move. I would think he's ready for a head coaching position, but or Jim Knowles of Oklahoma State. If those are the kinds of DCs he's looking at, I mean, that's terrific. That's really what we need. In terms of OC, there was some speculation that he may not hire OC. I don't think that's true. I definitely think he'll hire an OC. That one's completely up in the air. And I've already speculated that whoever it is, we're going to come down on him with 2 feet on Gator Chatter because that's what we do. And there's this obsession right now with passing and passing yards. It's like it's the only way to win. And that's really not true at all. I'll tell you the truth. Running and defense is still the best way to win in the SEC. It's not always the most exciting thing. But to me, the defense is the first thing we need to fix. Our defense the last 2 years has been embarrassing. I never thought our defense could look this bad. We've got to get back to, we've talked about the Florida standard on offense. What about the Florida standard on defense? There's no excuse for it. So I'm very excited about the coaching staff. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think he's going to keep at least one assistant that we have now for some continuity. It's probably a good idea. I don't know which one, but I think he's going to keep at least one, whether he should or not. It's probably not a bad idea. Okay, so we got some smart aleck questions. I'll just scroll past those. What do I think of Riley to USC and Kelly to LSU? Boy, did Riley screw Oklahoma. Now, he pulled a Muschamp. Not only does he leave town, but he takes all the recruits with him. Knowing those people, they may put out a hit on Lincoln Riley. I think it was, first of all, if the reports of the offer are anywhere true, you can't blame coaches for leaving, even if it's just for the money. I mean, when you're talking 10, 12 million a year and use of a private jet and this and that, just let's, sometimes we need to say, look, it's just about the money. Can you really blame Lincoln Riley for taking that deal? But USC should be the king of the West Coast. We don't really care about California over here because we rarely intertwine the two schools. He's a good hire. He's an exciting coach, young coach. They can win the Big 12, but I don't believe he ever won a playoff game, and he's never gotten all the way. Now, I think he was the sexiest guy available, but does he blow my mind? No, he doesn't. And I don't think he's going to bring USC back to where they were 15, 20 years ago. I just don't see it happening. In terms of Kelly to LSU, I think they settled for Kelly. I don't think Kelly was their first choice at all. They're acting like he is, but there's absolutely no way. Brian Kelly is funny. He's been there 12 years at Notre Dame, and every year when these coaching openings came open, no one mentioned Brian Kelly. No one for all these years. It's like because everyone just forgets he exists. He's just kind of there. And Notre Dame, they win a few games. They never do that much in the postseason. They've never been a real threat to win it all. He's I guess he's a safe pick because he knows how to run a program and he does recruit. He's recruited very well at Notre Dame. He's not going to embarrass you, but there's a big talk about the cultural fit. And so now he's in a real conference. He's in a really tough division with a bunch of the kind of people he's not used to there in the Deep South. So we'll see. A lot of rumors that he's a total jerk too. So I think they'll win some games, but I have absolutely no fear of LSU adding Brian Kelly. All right, let me see how many questions You said Strickland has seen the light. Can you elaborate? Does he give Napier's the tools he needs? I say yes. I think the recruiting budget, first of all, I think the assistant coach budget is going to be double, triple, quadruple what it was. I think we're going to have higher quality assistants, better experienced assistants, and I think we're going to have a lot of those analysts and the kind of people that the other big programs have to break down every aspect of the upcoming games and everything. It's ridiculous when Saban has a staff of 40 that we have a staff of 6 or whatever it is. So I think that gap is going to be closed big time. Stuff like, the players complained about the food, the nutritional program. I think that kind of stuff is going to change. We know some of the facilities are supposedly supposed to be done soon. The football complex, we'll see about that. That will obviously help. It's been a decade or better. So yeah, I think things have changed. I think things have finally changed. I think the administration have finally woke up, whether it was Strickland or people pressuring Strickland. It's time to keep up with the Joneses a little bit. We had the last shred of Foleyism, which was, we don't need any of that. I think has left the building, and thank God, years and years too late. Okay, you guys are babbling on while I am, so let's see how much I missed. Cover 2. Well, you cannot ignore cover 2. Prioritizing position group coaches. Which is the most important, needs immediate attention before all others? Well, I mentioned that a little bit. DC. I would love to get an established DC in there just to take over that unit. Get back to playing fundamental football. I don't know all the X's and O's. I really don't care. But I know our guys can't even seem to, to be able to make tackles. Well, let's get back. Let's start with teaching them the Pee Wee League fundamentals. And then maybe we can get in some fancier schemes with some higher quality players. Napier is going to have his mitts all over the offense, good or bad. That's what he does. I don't know whether he's going to want to keep calling plays or some of the plays or what. Still, I don't know. That's still the number one question. Any ideas you might pick for DC? I still like Jim Knowles. I don't think they want to let him go, but I don't know. Oklahoma State to Florida in this fresh start sounds good to me. I still think we still have a shot at him or someone like him. Okay, there's someone complaining about my looks. No surprise there. Let's see. Have you heard anything about Napier's contract details? No. I hear stuff just like you do. Whether it's true or not, who knows? Most of it's probably BS. But what we had heard was that Strickland gave him, there was a pool of money, and you pick what you want, and what's left over is for your assistant pool. So here's, $12 million. If you want to take 8, there's only 4 left for your assistants. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds like the kind of thing Strickland would do. However, if Strickland did do something like that, Napier to me is the kind of guy that would take less money for himself and more for his staff. It would not surprise me at all if he would do that. Mullen would take all 12 million and ask all his staff to be volunteers. Okay. Staff being retained, I have no idea. I don't really like any of them. So a lot of the people on the board know each of the staff better than I do. Ask, where's Swamp Donkey? See, he seems to know about those assistants and all their shortcomings. Let's see. Yeah, reaching out to Tom Herman, Paul Drake here mentions. That's what was reported today. Now, whether or not you think Tom Herman is a or would be a good OC, the fact is that's a name. Tom Herman was a head coach of a major college program. This is the kind of coach that Mullen would never have on his staff. You look at Saban's staff, and he's got all these former head coaches of both college and pro football on his staff. Now, what Swamp Donkey will say is, well, yeah, where our guys wouldn't pay for the assistants like that. Well, there's some truth to that. Mullen is the kind of guy, to me, I always thought, doesn't want anyone on the staff that's going to overshadow him in any way. You'll never see him with a former head coach anywhere on his staff. It's like he liked these little schmoes he could push around or whatever. When the great coaches, they want to be surrounded with the best assistants they possibly can. Yeah, Tom Herman says he's staying with the Bears. That entire Bears coaching staff is looking to get fired. So Herman may not have a job. So we'll just see about that. Okay. Boy, I've been babbling on for 20 minutes. What else we got here? Does this mean we're not getting Kiffin? Well, there's Threat Matrix, We could talk about Kiffin a little bit. Kiffin was the name. Kiffin was the reflex name. When we talk about sexy coaches, people want to be excited. So to some people, they look at Kiffin, they get excited. Some even sexually excited. It was obvious to me. But when you look at the big picture, Lane Kiffin would be an awful choice to rebuild Florida football. He's lazy, just like Mullen is. He's an arrogant, let's face it, he's an arrogant little punk. Sometimes that's not all bad. But the fact is, Lane Kiffin was the kind of guy, he was born on third base, and he thinks he hit a triple. He was a spoiled little rich kid. He was Monty Kiffin's kid. And he's still the same little spoiled brat kid as an adult. He's maybe a little better than he used to be. But the fact is, he thinks he should just be able to show up and win. He's just not who we need. He's nothing like a Billy Napier, and he's nothing like what we need. I think if we were lucky, we'd get one fun year out of him with AR-15, win 9 or 10 games. It's not like we would threaten to win the SEC, and then things would go downhill from there, and Kiffin would be gone within 2 or 3 years, which is where he always is. So when you add on top of that our history with Kiffin, how we've always hated Kiffin, we laughed at Kiffin. I have an emoji on my site of a pile of crap with flies buzzing around it that's called Kiffin. It's been that way since the old Gator Sports message board, I think. That's what we think of Kiffin. So to see we're at the point where all these Gators, well, we want Kiffin, I want Kiffin. To me, it bothered me. It's like whatever little pride we used to have left was gone. But I understand it. I really do, from what we've been through. And but a lot of people have warmed up. I think have finally warmed up. They've gotten over the anxiety of we have to make the sexy pick. And we're actually being able to talk realistic football now. Okay, I even have some people chatting in the YouTube chat box. What should be the recruiting ranking for the Billy Napier bump class? Now, is a bump class considered this year or next year? Anyone know what the bump class would be considered? I don't even know what our ranking is right this moment. But let's talk about next year's class. Next year's class needs to be top 10 minimum. I mean, we got to be somewhere between 4 and 9. That's where we got to be. If we want to actually start competing, that's where we got to be. I'll just say between 1 and 9. That's where we should be year in, year out. I absolutely think Billy Napier can put us there. He's going to work that hard. He's already working hard while he's preparing for a championship game this week. So I feel good about it. Really good about it. Do you have minimum expectations for Napier? Do you love him unconditionally? I don't know him well enough to love him unconditionally. I do know that we haven't had a single person say anything bad about him yet. Nobody. The only negative thing I heard, and I don't even consider it negative, and it was probably just a myth anyway, was that he punched out Dabo in the locker room. And I think most people heard that and they go, "Yeah, yeah, this is the kind of guy with the kind of fire we need." Um, we haven't even heard the presser, but I think, especially after the last two hires in particular, they have been so lazy. They've taken their millions and been lazy. To have a guy that's the opposite is the most exciting thing to me. We know he's working. He's not taking any vacations. You are not going to see Billy Napier on a vacation all the years he's here. I'm sure of it. That's great to see. He's got a job. He makes a lot of money. He's going to earn it. He's not also doesn't seem like the kind of guy that has any interest in the NFL. So even if he has a lot of success here, I don't see him bolting. He could genuinely be a long-term option, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know what long-term is anymore in college football. 5 years is probably considered long-term anymore. All right. Do you have any minimum expectations for Gator Chatter? Gator Chatter is such a free for all, and I have to try to rein it in a little from time to time, only a little. But I think I've let most of you go, and most of you. But I am still a dictator, and I decided long ago that this was going to be my board, and so I was going to have it done my way, right or wrong. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just my way. So, but I think let's say Gator Chatter has a people that act like idiots, but they're smart. And when you can corner them and actually talk to them seriously, you might be amazed at the intelligent things that come out of their mouth. It's sometimes it's hard to get there. But that's why this is the members we have on Gator Chatter are a amazingly well kept secret. I would put up this group against any of the other sites and the idiots they have. Smart, generous people, just a bunch of wise asses. But to me, let's face it, I'm a wise ass too. And they say, "Why do you allow name calling?" Well, because I like the name calling too. When I was involved in message boards, long before I owned a message board, I was into the name calling because I found it funny. And the stupid mom stuff, your mom this and that. Well, who started that? Who's the ringleader? Well, me. Well, is it juvenile? Of course. But I can't help it. It's not for everybody. So those others just go to swamp gas, and they can drink tea over there and with the little doilies and discuss things rationally. Okay, now Deuce mentions the transfer portal. That's another thing hanging out there. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a big fish here or there. The transfer portal. That was Mullen's way of recruiting. Mullen's recruiting was let me try to get someone in the transfer portal, and he did well. He did well, but that's not an excuse for letting recruiting go. Smart aleck comment. Cousin Eddie. Yeah, Mullen. Where does Mullen go from here? Can you tell me who would want Dan Mullen? Now, my father thinks that Mullen would view a lesser head coaching job, like what Butters took, like a Central Michigan job, as beneath him at this point, that he wouldn't take it. And I tend to agree. And some people say, well, he could be OC. Well, I think he's going to view being OC as beneath him. And we know the NFL's not interested in him. I don't know what he's going to do. He'll probably take a year off and maybe some desperate school will call him, but the guy does not know how to run a program. And he's an overrated OC. So people say, he should go join Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer wouldn't have Dan Mullen back on his staff. You threatened him with a knife. I don't think he wants anything to do with Dan Mullen. Okay. Hmm. Looks like you guys have run out of good stuff. Well, what did you guys? Let me ask. Since we're here, is this useful? Do you like this format? Do you want more of these? Uh, hey, in turn, somebody asked about men's basketball. I haven't. Mike White kind of crushed basketball for me a couple of years ago. I haven't paid much attention. I've heard some good things about this year's team, so I'm going to get back on board with that. So I certainly couldn't answer anything about men's basketball right now, but I'm gonna dive back in. I just have no faith in the Gators doing anything in the tournament under Mike White. Cousin Eddie can rehab at Bama. I don't think Mullen does not like to take orders. I'm picturing Mullen working for Saban. The roof would blow off that place. There'd be such a battle. That would never happen. Never. uh, okay, guys. Anything else? I didn't have to kick anybody. Now, this is not an 80s shirt, but of course, it references 80s stuff. As you know, I'm a Gen Xer, like most of the people in this box. Most of the people on Gator Chatter are Gen Xers. We got a few baby boomers and just a handful of millennials, but I'd say 85% of the board at least are Gen Xers. Basketball ceiling, I have no idea. Keontae Johnson, they still got him sitting on the bench in street clothes. No one is putting Keontae Johnson on the floor ever again, unless he signs a bunch of paperwork stacked so high it gets to the moon. No one is putting a guy on the floor that could drop dead any minute. He's finished. He needs to take his insurance money and enjoy himself. Do you see them actually retaining Savage? I don't. I think Napier's got his own, fitness team, and I think we had heard he was bringing in possibly two guys to do what Savage does, and I don't. I think we're going to have two, and I don't think either one of them is going to be Savage, and I don't think we should retain Savage, and I don't think Napier is going to retain Savage. We had heard our guys had put on some They can be muscular, but they're not strong. We need guys with strength, not big pecs. So it's those big fatties, that bench that can lift all that weight. Those are the guys we need. No one cares about your six pack. We need strength. Big difference between strength and muscles. Let's see. Why do you hate Casey? I love Casey. She's great. She's here every day. The Gator Chatter's only got, what is it? The demographics 3 to 5% women. And that's both posting and just lurk. So that's it. We have a few ladies on Gator Chatter that can actually hang with the lunatics that are here. Even being able to make it one day is these are some special gals. So hell, we've got all what's her face, the 82-year-old Miami. No one had Who the hell has an elderly woman on a sports message board? It's totally unheard. It's completely unheard of. Never heard anything like it. Okay, I digress. Okay, Daytona Kane. Yes, why did I forget that? Has anyone heard from her lately? Maybe we may want to check on Daytona Kane. Usually, when people sometimes just drop off with no indication, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll look at their last post. Sometimes you can see they had a pissing match with somebody and they just storm off and never come back. So it's obvious why they left. But some they're just poof. And when they do that, I normally have their real name and I'll start Googling it, hoping not to find the, funeral arrangements have been made for Joe Smith. Luckily, I haven't come across that. But I think we have a few people that disappeared over the last few years that are dead, and we don't know it. Why do you think we're already seeing guys enter the transfer portal? This always happens in a coaching change. Probably, guys. I don't think it's because anyone hates the incoming staff. We don't really know the incoming staff other than Napier. I think they wisely feel they're just not going to play next year. And I think if a player has any aspirations of, especially the next level, if he's not going to play, he should transfer at the end of his career. Emory Jones should transfer. And I'll root for him. But he shouldn't be playing next year, or does he want to come back as a backup? Maybe he does. But if he has any aspirations at the next level, he needs to go to a smaller school and light it up. And Emory Jones could. Emory Jones could go to the Sun Belt and probably tear it up. So let's hope that he does that. Do you think Napier coaches the bowl? No, he's not going to coach their bowl game. The coaches never coach. They never coach the bowl game. They'll coach their championship game, never the bowl game. So he is Billy Napier is all ours starting on Sunday. As I said, I cannot wait for that presser. AKA just got here, so I'm going to have to start over. So let me back up to my first remarks. This will also be posted in the thread, so anyone can watch this later on. But I have to say that seeing people live is a lot more fun. Cross kick Cooter, someone mentioned. Yeah, that was a tough one. He's the most, in all these years, he's the most kind of established member that we had a relationship with that passed away. And so many people know that you've never met, but they feel like old friends. A lot of you, even people in this box, go back to when I started at the Gator Sports Message Board in the summer of 2007. So that's 14 and a half years now. So even though I haven't met a lot of you, I certainly feel like I have. So these people you talk to every day, they weasel into your heart. So Cooter is watching right now. Sometimes I think he's watching things that I'm doing that I wish he wouldn't watch. I can feel it. So I have to, stop doing what I'm doing, and it kind of ruins the mood. Okay. All right. I'm not answering that question. Cooter sent me pepper sauce. He did the same thing with me. And it was good. I dipped my cheese sticks in it. That's where it was the best. But it sounds like I wasn't special. It sounds like he did it to a bunch of people. Will the Napier presser be a snooze fest? Well, I always think most of these things are full of coach speak. Now, Napier's kind of a good old Southern boy. He may give us a little more than we would normally get. Hopefully, the people there asking questions will probe a little bit, ask some tougher questions. Probably not, since the Gator media guys want to get in so good right away. They're probably not. They don't want to turn anybody off immediately. So I don't know what we're going to get, but hopefully we'll get a little bit more than coach speak. Okay, everybody. I have talked long enough. 8:08. We got a basketball game on, I've heard. Maybe I'll tune in a little. One more thing. Will Napier coach our bowl game? No, definitely not. But I'm sure he'll probably be there in the box. They won't even put him on the sideline. It's usually how these things work. He definitely won't coach the bowl game. I wish that we had done what Oklahoma, having Bob Stoots coach the bowl game. Why couldn't we have Spurrier coach our bowl game? Wouldn't that be awesome? We would love that. See Spurrier one more game coaching the Gators, and he'd be fine. He'd be fine with one game. Too bad. I dare to dream. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. Bye-bye.